Good, CDN Alliance. I mean, everybody has heard a little bit about it so far. And this is really our official launch event. So we're going to talk a little bit about the why of the CDN Alliance. So why do we actually do all this? And why do we think this is actually needed? So really about the why. Simon Sinek, I'm not sure if you guys, if everybody knows them, but he's a famous speaker. And one of his sessions on TED, as a TED talk, was about the golden circle, and really zooming in on the actual why. And this is one of his famous things to say, that it's nearly not about what you buy from a person, but really about why he's doing it that you buy, and that you buy something because you believe in that particular person or that particular vision. So that we really wanted to zoom into the why here. So how it all began. So the CDN Alliance has started. I had to look up the date. March 3, 2020, just pre-COVID, basically, when it all started. And it was a regular dinner with me and Thijs, specifically on just regularly catching up based on the event that was happening. And we were talking about, okay, how can we leverage our expertise and our knowledge in a better way than we do now? And along the way, we really looked, okay, how can we do some training, some certification capabilities in what we do? Because we really thought that was still a void in the CDN market. But along the way, we found out, like, we can do training, we can do certification, but who's going to believe us? Because there is no authority that actually says you can actually do certification, and if you're certified, you do it well. Another point here also, as part of it, is that we found out that there is basically no cohesion in the market. Every CDN is different, every setup is different, so there is no real cohesion that we can do within the market. So once we started talking about this, we found out that there are so many differences, there are so many things unclear in the market, and there is no real organization on top of it, an industry organization that is really managing the CDN industry. And that basically for us was really starting point with, okay, is there something there that we have not seen in the last decade? And both me and Thijs have a long history in CDN, where we really looked at, okay, what was happening here? So what we basically did is after the session, after the dinner we had, is we came back like, okay, what is this? Are we onto something, or is this are we chasing a ghost, so to speak? So we did research on the internet, figuring out, okay, how does the actual CDN industry organize itself? And we found out that there is basically nothing. In our back of our heads, we already knew somehow, but we really didn't look at it like that. So that's really for us was a starting point. Okay, we might be onto something. We need to verify this, and we started talking with a lot of people. So we did our research. We talked with a lot of people, just understanding, okay, what are things that you see? Are we right? Are we wrong? Do people have similar things that we see? Are there pains? Are there needs? Are there challenges? And more when we talk with other people, people got feedback, we use that feedback to talk with others. And along the way, we found out more and more about the different pains and needs and challenges within the market. So after a number of different talks, also doing eventually an industry questionnaire to really quantify typical challenges that we saw, we really figured out, okay, we really need to get this going. So we tried to figure out, okay, how do we need to do it? In what way do we need to do it the right way in order to launch? And then we had the outages of Akamai and Fastly and Cloudflare in June and July. And that for us was basically the starting sign, okay, this is really the sign that we really need to get going. And basically that was a starting sign for us to start on September 1st, officially launching the CDN Alliance. Now, what we did as part of it is really identifying challenges. So one of the biggest challenges that we found out is actually the challenge that a lot of people, and us included in the beginning, that the CDN industry does not have a problem. And just by talking with a lot of people, and again, findings that we found, putting them back to other people for verification, really made people also aware, like, hey, actually there are more challenges than we initially thought. Actually, we had a number of different aha moments for different people, and I know one specific one where I said, yeah, there is no industry association like other industries for the CDN market, and he's like, no. I said, no. And he really looked on the internet. Is there nothing? There is nothing. And this is a well-known person in the market that really has not really thought about that in detail. So to capture the challenges was very difficult because everybody had a different view on how a challenge is perceived. But by talking with a lot of people, we were really able to identify the different challenges that we are. And we try to put those into, to simplify those, let's put it that way, for other people to understand. Because everybody has a different mindset and view and challenge that they have. So we try to really group them. And also we needed to define, okay, where is the actual challenge applicable, right? Is this a free industry problem, or is this more a problem of that particular corporation or organization, or is it even more on a personal level? And that's basically where we found out that there are 3 groups of challenges that we have discovered along the way. And if you can see, this is only a subset of all the challenges that we found along the way. And there's quite a number of different challenges, and a number of them are pretty well known. Some of them are a little less known. And those are actually the main challenges that we see. And of course, those, if you zoom in on those, you actually discover a lot more detailed specific challenges. But there are 3 types of groupings that we have done. So one is industry challenges, and industry challenges are really challenges that we only as an industry can solve, right? If we work together as an ecosystem, if we work together as an industry, we can solve these challenges. If we don't organize ourselves as an industry, we will not be able to change those. So those are typical industry challenges. Another one is corporate challenges. So corporate challenges are challenges that we see happening with different groups of organizations where they reinvent the same wheel. This is very common that we saw with all the different interviews that we did with different people, is that they all have the same type of challenges. They try to solve them on their own, in silo. Right? Everybody has their own silo in solving them, where we think if we would put all those people together in one single room, solve it together, and then make use of it as an industry, this would actually help the industry move faster, move quicker, more cost effective, and we can focus on other stuff that is more important as an industry instead of reinventing the wheel. And the last group that we defined are individual challenges that we found out that are on an individual level, on a personal level, that everybody copes with if you're in the CDN industry. So I'm going to give you 2 examples of each of those groups, just to give you an indication of what kind of challenges there are. So for industry, we have standardization. Now, bottom line for the CDN industry itself does not have any standards. Yes, the CDN industry is built based on standards, open standards or web standards, etc. But itself, as an industry, it does not have any standards. There are some initiatives coming now in that area, but as an industry itself, it does not have any standards. And actually, if you look at the word standards, standards is a 1 and 0, right? It can only be 1 or 0. the real look we have right now is really more looking at the normalization. So really making sure that at least we have a set of agreements instead of a yes, no. Even if we do that, that's already a win. So even though we call it standardization, the first focus that we have as an industry is really look at normalization as a first step. Now, standardization seems like an ugly word in CDN space. What we actually see is when we talk with our people, we use the word standardization, people say, oh, that's commoditization, because that's typically what they see. But we have a number of different examples already where we think standardization can certainly be done without impacting any potential for commoditization. And this is very simple. It's not just technology, but it's also in terms of interoperability, but also in definitions, right? If you just look at purely definitions, we're not looking at the technology side, we're not looking at the interoperability side, but just in definitions itself, getting normalization or eventually standardization in definitions within the CDN space itself would already be a big win because it's not there. And this has actually been identified in talks with other people, not just by ourselves. We verified it with different people, but people came actually with us. This needs to be done. Another one is regulation. Now, regulation is, of course, a very not popular topic, let's put it that way. And years back, regulation and CDN were not two words that would actually be used in one sentence. But what we already hear is that the first discussions of regulation on the CDN side are actually started. This is already happening in the cloud area. The first steps in the CDN space are happening as well. So it is time to really start thinking about the impact of regulation and how we can do this the right way. Just to give an example, when we had outages of Akamai and Cloudflare and Fastly, there was a discussion ongoing about, okay, do we need to see CDN as critical infrastructure? And with that, the question came, do we need to look at regulation at some point? Because it will be seen as critical infrastructure. Now, luckily, after July, there were no outages anymore, but you could imagine that if we would keep on having outages as an industry, this could actually trigger policymakers to really look at potential regulation of CDN space. So that is something we really have to be careful about. And if we would have such a chain event again, this could be potentially happening. We should not close our eyes for this. Regulation is also not always a bad thing to happen for an industry, right? There are a lot of examples as well for industry that went into regulation or at least had some sort of regulation in some degree that actually benefited from regulations. So regulations is not always a negative thing to have. It's actually a validation that you're important as an industry. So don't always look at regulation as a bad thing, but we do need to take a closer look at it. And what we absolutely need to do is we need to be a voice. We need a voice within the industry, as a voice, as an industry, before it is being regulated. So if the industry is being regulated at some degree, and we have no voice about how that should be done or how it could be done, there's no way that we can influence and help them understand on the regulation side to do it in a way that is beneficial for the industry. So the reason here is really make sure that we get this going before this happens, so we can mold it in a way that we as an industry benefit from it, and it's not being used against us in the end. Now, if you look at the corporate side of things, another one is privacy. Now, everybody is known with GDPR, and we heard multiple times from different interviews that privacy is a concern. It's already a big topic in general, and it's becoming bigger, right? There are more and more countries looking at legislation around privacy, GDPR-like types of legislation, and that is actually impacting the CDNs. Because looking at this legislation and what kind of impact this has on users of a CDN actually is very time consuming. It's very costly and it needs a lot of expertise. And with the growing use of these kind of privacy laws across the world globally, this could actually have a very significant impact on the CDN industry if we don't do this well. And this is seen already by a number of different CDNs as a potential threat. And the thing is, so far, so if you look at GDPR, CCPA, and all kinds of other types of privacy regulations, CDNs has always been last in line, right? So the legislation has been there, and CDNs just had to comply. And the reason is because again, here, there is no voice. We were not able, as an industry, to make sure that GDPR, that CCPA, or any other legislation that is coming to be embedded in a way that it's easier workable for CDNs to work with. And whether this is a public CDN, whether this is a private CDN, it doesn't matter. But in general, there is no voice. There is no voice that is able to talk with a public body and say, hey, you need to do it this and this and this way. That's better for us, makes it easier, and you can still do what you want to do. Now we're always last in line. Another problem which we didn't really think about, but what came across from different companies is vacancies. So a very big problem, what we found out is that a lot of the companies in the industry have issues finding the right people. And this is actually a big issue. We hear it's one of the most heard questions that we got from people, from the people we talked with. That filling vacancies is a big issue. And one of the issues here is where to look for the right candidates, right? So CDN is a very specific area. So where do you find your candidates? Another thing is, what expertise levels do they need, right? There is no certification for CDN. There's no way how you can say this is a good CDN engineer or is not. So this is a point of concern to those companies to really look at this. Okay, how can we do this in a better way? And this is really an issue for them. And the same is, how do they train people, right? So it takes time to train people, especially in the CDN space, which is very, very specific. So now this is really done by holding hands and doing internal training, which is also costing a lot of time and effort from existing employees. And the reason here is there is no training material available. We actually got questions from multiple organizations already, like, could you just create training material for us so we can actually have the material available? Because for us, it doesn't make sense to create the material, but if the material is available, we could actually do this. So this is certainly a problem that we didn't identify, but really came across. Now, on the individual side, a big issue is finding the right information. So if you want to look for any information on the CDN side, Google is your best friend. There is no starting point where you can find information out there. So that's a big issue for, we heard from a lot of people, that finding the right information is difficult. A lot of information that is available is not independent and cannot be verified. So they have to assume things on whether the information is correct or not. What we also found out is that a lot of people would love to validate or ask questions somewhere to, instead of searching it themselves, being able to ask questions for it. And last but not least, a lot of people just don't know where to look, but they at least need to have a starting point. And this is certainly an issue that with a lot of people, finding the right information in general is difficult within this space. Another one they found out is networking. So if you look at people in general, we call them circles. People have their own circles on how they have contacts with, and they hardly get out of their circles with new people. So getting in touch with other people in the CDN space is very difficult, and there's just no capability of doing so. Whether this is people in areas of interest, so things that are interesting in terms of the CDN space, or on a geolocation, so really in the neighborhood or in the same country or the same region. It's very difficult to find the right people because there's no location, no place where you can actually meet with each other. And what we also found out, a lot of people love to discuss about CDN. When we get engaged with somebody who's really passionate about CDN, we could talk with hours and hours with that person because they would love to talk about CDN. But the problem is there is no platform to do this. And what we also found out that a lot of people would like to share experiences, share knowledge, etc. And we believe that sharing is multiplying, and this actually is lacking right now in the CDN industry because there is no access to connect and there's no capability to share. And this is something we found out as well from the individuals. So those are a couple of challenges that, just to give me a highlight, and again, this is just a very small subset of all the different challenges that we already found, but just to give you an indication of what kind of challenges we are looking at. Now, if you look at the CDN Alliance right now, so the founding phase we've done, right? So we officially founded, legally incorporated on April 1st, on April Fool's Day. It's not a joke, but we really launched on April 1st, and September 1st we made our public appearance, and we're now currently in the startup phase, and that means that we're really gearing up the organization, gearing up people, getting the first members on board, getting the activities running, etc. And we're gearing up for the acceleration phase, which will happen in 2022. Where we really get into public appearances, started doing lobbying, work with partners, other organizations, etc. So that's where we're going to. Now, if you look at our mission, and again, this is really the why again, and we've been chewing on this mission for a while, actually, before we finally got to this one, and including help from other people giving feedback on this. But our mission is being an independent nonprofit organization with the goal to connect, support, and represent the global CDN industry and CDN community. And if I break it down, independent and nonprofit for a lot of people is important. This is something we found out during the interviews as well, that being independent and being absolutely independent is very important. Even got people saying that if we would start with a number of different main players, they would never join because then we would never be independent again. So we really decided to be really independent and really make sure that we're not related to any other player in the industry. So we can really play an independent role. Apart from that, we're really non-profit, meaning everything we do is really for the industry. It doesn't have a commercial goal. It's really making sure that the industry moves forward. Now, the second part of our mission is really about for whom we do it, right? So we call it the global CDN industry and CDN community. So global meaning we focus on the global CDN industry. We don't on a specific region. We want to make sure that we include the whole global industry as part of it. And we focus on the community as well, so in industry and the community. The community are really the people within the CDN industry, so on a personal level. And the other part is the industry, and those are really the organizations, the organizations and the companies that are in the industry. And what's important here is if you look at the industry itself, we focus on the full CDN spectrum, meaning bit delivery, dynamic delivery, media delivery, security, and edge. So the full spectrum of CDN services we really want to cover within the CDN Alliance. Now, who do we see as CDN industry members? And this is already just to give an indication on how people think about naming things. If we would ask different people about what the CDN industry actually is, I would get different answers. So we define the CDN industry, in our opinion, as 4 different groups of organizations that we think belong to the industry. So the first are the CDN service providers. So those are companies that market and sell CDN services. So those are the typical CDN players that we all know, but also their resellers, their channel partners, but also multi-CDN players. So anyone that markets and sells CDN services, whether you own a network or not. The second part of companies that we define as being CDN industry is what we call CDN technology providers. And those are companies that develop CDN technology and key components to build CDNs. So this is related to hardware, software, data, for instance, GIP databases and that kind of stuff, but also services like monitoring services and all kinds of other services that you use. So any technology or key components that you use to build CDNs. The third group is what we call CDN ecosystem players. And CDN ecosystem players are companies that do not market or sell CDN services. They do not develop technology or key components, but they have a place in the ecosystem. Simple as ISPs, carriers, data centers, exchanges, but also system integrators. So anyone, we call them the glue and the oil of the ecosystem to make sure that things work. The fourth group is what we call CDN industry players. And those are companies that either use CDN service providers, so the customers of CDN service providers, or customers that are using CDN technology providers to build their own CDNs. And this could be typical content providers, but also ISPs that build their own CDNs. Now, of course, a company can be in 1, 2, or 3 different segments. This is just to highlight what kind of different groups we actually represent as part of what we call the CDN industry. Now, if you look at what we do, we focus really on 2 types of memberships as part of what we do with the CDN Alliance. We have what we call industry members and community members. Now, community members is everybody on a personal level. So everybody can become part of our community. This is free. There is no cost involved. Everybody can do this, and you can benefit from all the benefits that we offer to our community members. The other part is what we call industry members. So industry members are companies that are in the CDN industry and play a role there. And these as a company can become member of the CDN Alliance. Of course, there's a cost involved of becoming a member. But as an organization, you can become a member there. Now, of course, there are people that are part of the community and also work at one of those industry members. And those are what we call corporate members. And those members specifically have special capabilities because the industry members actually pay for a part of the capabilities that are available. So community members do have capabilities. However, corporate members do have special capabilities, additional capabilities, because industry members pay for them. Now, the next part is what we call really what we do, which is the connect, support, and represent part. Now, connect is very simple. This is really about connecting everybody, right? This is connecting people, right? Connecting our community. So making sure people can connect with other people digitally, physically, in all kinds of different ways. We also do the same on the industry side. So we connect industry companies with each other to work on different topics, to connect with each other, et cetera, et cetera. We also connect the industry with the community. Just to give you a few examples, one of the things that we're working on is, for instance, the job board. Again, this is a need that we see, but by offering this both to the community as well as the industry, we're actually able to really connect the community and the industry. And there are more of those capabilities out there. Another part of this is when we work on challenges, the earlier mentioned challenges on industry, corporate, and individual. The challenge that we want to work on, we don't want to work them only from an industry perspective, so only for companies. We also want to involve the community as part of it. And this is important because we believe that there's a lot of expertise and capabilities within the actual community, including freelancers, independents, etc. So we want to make sure that these are involved in solving the challenges that we have as an industry. The support part is really about our activities that we want to do. And all activities that we do, whether this is events, research, knowledge sessions, working on working groups, etc., etc. It's all important that it's initiated. We can initiate those, but it needs to be driven by our members. So both our community members as well as our industry members. It needs to support our mission. Everything we do, we look at our mission and that, and it needs to benefit our members because that's what we want to do. Now, the last part is the represent part, and the represent part is really about us being the face and the voice of the industry. And now that the CDN Alliance is there, the industry now at least has a face where people can actually come to and talk to. Before this, there was no possibility for anyone else to talk with the CDN industry. The other part is the voice part, and the voice part is really us voicing our opinion as an industry, what we think is best for the industry, but also be a partner to talk with, for instance, in terms of legislation and other legal capabilities that are needed, but also in relation to, for instance, to the press, etc., etc. So really making sure that we can make ourselves known and make sure that our importance as an industry is known to the other world. Now, of course, we would like you to join, and we do this, but what we also do is expanding our crew. So in the meantime, we have a lot of people that wanted to help. So we already have another 10 people that are joining our crew. We will invite those, we will introduce those in the next couple of weeks. But our team is growing. So if you're interested as part of the crew, feel free to reach out to us. We're still looking at additional people. But not only crew, we're also looking at additional community members and additional industry members. Now, why do industry members join? I'm not going to read all of those, but just to give an indication of what kind of reasons are why industry members join. So I would say join us, stay informed. If you've not registered yet as a community member or as an industry member or our newsletter or whatever, follow us on LinkedIn. Feel free to contact us at any time and join us on our mission. Thank you.